Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually when we grab a stack of sources on a new album, we're looking at it through a pretty specific lens.
Totally. Production, chart history, that kind of thing.
Exactly. We treat it as entertainment,
I
something to vibe to on a long drive. But today we are doing something completely different. We're looking at an album as a survival manual.
And that's a massive shift in perspective, isn't it? Instead
Wow.
of listening to be entertained, we are listening
Yeah.
to navigate.
Yes.
We're analyzing an EP called My Own History by the artist Hi-Fi. And the stack we have today is unique because we aren't just looking at the lyrics, which are, I have to say, incredibly dense on their own.
Oh, for sure.
We're also cross-referencing them with her own track-by-track commentary and some fascinating notes on the psychology of resilience.
It's really a case study in how a person reconstructs a self after it's been, systematically dismantled. So the mission for this deep dive is to trace that anatomy. We're going to move from the total disorientation of seeking help through the hypervigilance of sex work into the interrogation phase, and then finally into liberation.
And what I really appreciate about this is that the metaphors, dragons, maps, borrowed gowns, they're not just like poetic flourishes.
Not.
They are cognitive tools. She's using them to explain a reality that most people find really uncomfortable to look at directly. She's building a framework for it.
So let's jump right into the deep end. The first track on the EP is called Mapmaker. And the scenario here is something I think, honestly, anyone can relate to.
Right.
It's that moment you finally break down and walk into a professional's office, a therapist, a counselor, whatever, and you sit down in that chair.
It's the I can't do this alone anymore moment, the admission that your internal compass is just, it's broken.
Exactly. And in the lyrics, there's this desperate, almost visceral craving for certainty. She says, mapmaker, didn't get it in black. I don't know where the edge begins or ends.
That's the universal desire in trauma recovery. We want it in black.
Yes.
We want the guarantee. The patient comes in expecting the expert to be the architect.
Yeah.
Here's the blueprint. Step 1, step 2, fixed. You want to outsource the navigation.
But that is not what happens in the song. And honestly, anyone who's been to therapy knows this is the most frustrating part. The lyric that hits so hard is, you laid a blank page on the table in between.
And that's the pivot point of the whole record.
Yeah.
It feels like a betrayal, doesn't it?
It does.
You came for a map, you paid for a map, and they gave you blank paper. But Hi-Fi points out in her commentary that this is the first necessary step. The lyric is, you're holding the pen, but I describe the view.
Which is terrifying. Because if you're the one describing the view, you have to actually look at it. You can't just close your eyes and let someone lead you.
Precisely. The therapist can hold the flashlight, they can hold the pen, but they cannot draw the terrain. Only the person who lived it knows where the cliffs are.
So if they draw it based on a textbook, it's theoretical.
It is. It won't save you in the real world. You have to describe the topography of your own pain for the map to be functional.
There's a specific line in this track that just, I've been turning it over in my head all morning. North is just a direction.
That is such a profound insight, disguised as a simple statement.
On the surface, it sounds obvious. Like, yeah, of course, north is a direction. But in the context of recovery, it feels like it's arguing against the idea of a destination.
It completely dismantles the myth of the finish line. We have this cultural narrative that you go to therapy, you do the work, and then you arrive at healed.
Right, like it's a zip code you can move to.
Exactly. But Hi-Fi is arguing that north isn't a place. You don't arrive at north. You just orient yourself toward it and you keep walking.
So the goal isn't to get there. It's just to stop spinning in circles.
The goal is to draw the legend, as the song says, to understand the scale of the map. It's about making sense of the wasted years and acknowledging the cost, rather than rushing to some finish line that doesn't actually exist. It's a shift from fixing to navigating.
Okay, so once you accept you're the one drawing the map, you have to accurately record the terrain. And for Hi-Fi, that terrain was the sex industry. This brings us to the second track, Training Dragons.
This is where the tone shifts, aggressively. We move from the quiet safety of the therapist's office to the high-stakes environment of the actual work.
Now, Training Dragons, it sounds like a fantasy epic. I'm picturing swords and shields.
Right. But the source material makes it clear this is a metaphor for threat assessment. The dragon is the volatility of a client.
The unknown variable walking through the door.
Exactly. And this track is a masterclass in what psychologists call hypervigilance. The lyrics list these micro-observations. I'm reading the text, I'm checking the list, I see the tension in the way he makes a fist.
That sounds absolutely exhausting. It's not just doing a job, it's constant, high-speed data processing.
That's the key word right there, data. Tie-Fi makes a really important distinction between paranoia and instinct. Society loves to tell women they're being paranoid. Oh, you're overreacting. Relax.
The gaslighting of intuition. You're crazy.
Precisely. But Tie-Fi argues that that gut feeling is actually rapid data processing. Your brain is recognizing a pattern of danger before your conscious mind has time to articulate it. It isn't magic. And it isn't hysteria. It is data.
So when she talks about cutting the line on the tripwire, she's talking about acting on that data.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yes, it's emotional bomb disposal. If you sense the tripwire, you don't wait to see if it explodes. You cut the line. And this leads to the title concept, training the dragon.
That distinction really matters. She isn't slaying the dragon. She isn't fighting it.
No. Think about the power dynamic. Slaying would be a confrontation. And in a closed room with a volatile man who's stronger than you, well, you generally lose that fight. Training implies behavior management.
De-escalation.
The lyrics say, navigate the ego, get out of the way. You aren't trying to fix the client. You're not trying to heal his soul. You're just managing his ego enough to keep him calm so you can get through the hour safely.
It's almost Machiavellian, but for survival. I govern the game.
It is. It's reclaiming control in a situation that is structurally out of your control. You cultivate an environment where nobody gets played, so nobody gets hurt, by managing the dragon's temperature.
So training dragons is about physical safety. But then we move to Ghost of a Girl in a Borrowed Gown, and the threat changes. It's about a kind of spiritual erosion.
It's the threat of scope creep. In business, that's when a project grows beyond its original agreement. Here, the scope creep is the client wanting access to the worker's soul when they only paid for the body.
The title captures that feeling so well, Ghost of a Girl in a Borrowed Gown. But the lyrics describe how clients book the hour but want the soul. They want the therapist experience.
Playing therapist in lace and silk. This is where the boundaries just become porous. The source material talks about the people-pleaser response, or what psychologists might call the fawn response. To stay safe, the worker starts giving away pieces of herself that weren't for sale.
There's that line about answering texts late at night, letting the session bleed into the night. It seems harmless at first, but then she hits you with, I'm letting you crawl right out of your skin into mine.
That is such a visceral description of enmeshment. When your boundaries are that open, you start carrying their shame, their secrets. You lose the distinction between where me ends and you begins.
And the realization of the unfairness of that trade is just brutal. My body is a temple, not a public street.
It highlights the asymmetry. The worker is treating the client with the care of a therapist. Meanwhile, the client is treating the worker's body like a public thoroughfare. The exchange is fundamentally broken.
So how do you stop it? Because the song suggests that politeness is the trap. Being the nice girl is what gets you erased.
You have to kill the nice girl. The lyrics talk about using a dull, rusty knife to cut the cord. It's messy. It's not a graceful exit. You might have to be rude. But the core insight here is that line.
My no is a sentence.
My no is a sentence.
I love that line.
It is linguistically perfect. It means it doesn't require justification. It doesn't need a because. It doesn't need a sorry but. It's a complete grammatical and emotional structure. No, it's the reestablishment of the boundary.
It's the moment she realizes she can sell a service, but she cannot sell her essence. But as we move to the next track, I've spent years, we learn that just walking away, it doesn't mean the struggle is over.
No, because now you have to face the world outside. And the world outside is judgmental. The world outside has questions.
The imagery shifts from dragons to a fire squad and interrogation.
This track really addresses the perfect victim myth, which is a massive sociological concept.
Okay, unpack that for us. What's the perfect victim?
Society has a very specific script for how a victim of trauma should look and behave. They should be helpless, weeping, young, and most importantly, they shouldn't have signed a contract.
Right. Because she was a worker, the fire squad asks, where were you? What was the time? Did you leave a mark? It sounds like a cross-examination.
It effectively is. The logic is, you put yourself in that room, you took the money, therefore you don't get to call it trauma. The lyrics say they want a map of the trauma, a perfect clean line.
But trauma is never a clean line.
It's messy. It involves bad decisions and survival choices that look ugly from the outside.
If I'm not the perfect victim, then I'm just a lie. That's the trap. If you admit you had agency, society says you forfeit your right to sympathy.
Exactly. It attempts to turn survival into a checklist. But Ti-Fi flips this dynamic completely in the bridge. She stops trying to pass their tests.
You don't own the throne.
That is the reclamation. She realizes her survival is an achievement, not a crime. She says, I'm a queen in a kingdom that I built on my own. She's washing her spirit of the shame because she realizes the people asking the questions. They have no idea what it takes to survive the dragon.
It becomes an internal validation. She stops waiting for the world to say, you are okay, and decides, I am okay.
Which is the only way to reach the final stage, the title track, My Own History.
And this feels like the exhale after holding your breath for the whole album. The sun is coming up. The music even gets lighter, right? Turn off the neon. Let the morning in.
It's the departure. But what's interesting is how she frames the past. A lot of people, when they leave a traumatic situation, they want to burn it all down, pretend it never happened.
But she doesn't do that. She says the industry was a mirror and she never had a lens wide enough for the real me. She's shedding the persona, the ghost, but not erasing the woman who survives.
And that's the critical distinction between avoidance and integration. She says, the girl I used to be is a girl I never forget. Why? Because that girl survived. That girl had the grit to train dragons. You don't throw that away.
She's a foundation. She's a strength in my bones.
Exactly. If you try to delete your history, you delete the resilience you built during that history.
Yeah.
The palace she describes, I built a palace out of the rubble, is only possible because of the rubble. No rubble, no bricks.
It is such a powerful reframing. The trauma isn't the cage. It's the raw material for the new life. No longer a prisoner of my own history.
That's the liberation. She isn't free because she forgot. She's free because she remembers, and she accepts it. She's the author of the story now, not just the character things are happening to.
So if we look at this entire map we've just walked through, I mean, what a journey. We started with the confusion of map maker.
We moved into the hypervigilance of training dragons, learning to trust our data.
We saw the danger of losing ourselves in Ghost of a Girl and the absolute necessity of the word no.
We faced the judgment of the world in I've spent years and learned to just reject the checklist.
And finally, we ended up in my own history, using all that wreckage to build something strong.
It circles all the way back to that first insight. North is just a direction. She didn't find a magic portal. She just kept drawing the map until she found a way out.
It leaves us with a pretty confronting question for you, the listener. The key takeaway from Ti-Fi is you are the author.
It forces you to look at your own life. It doesn't matter if you've never been in this industry. The mechanism is the same. Where are you sitting at a table, staring at a blank page, waiting for someone else to pick up the pen?
Because the reality is, nobody else knows where your cliffs are. Nobody else can describe your view.
You're the only one with the data. You have to draw the line.
That is a heavy but strangely hopeful thought to take with you today. If you want to really understand the texture of this, go listen to My Own History. Don't just vibe to it. Read the map.
And find your own way out.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. We will see you next time.